Hey everyone and welcome. Remember when I told you that an inquiry isn't what we need because they'd just put horrible people that look for excuses in charge and we're still not here and figure out the truth. Disgusting, vile, nonsing truth. Because that's what they're looking to do. They're looking to brush this under the carpet. They're going to argue and argue and argue about an inquiry, and then they're going to fold to the inquiry, and then it's going to take them another 7 years to even look at anything. Meanwhile, no justice for the girls, no justice for the country, and we are a lapping stock of the world.
And I do believe that we have rotten politics, and I'm not using that as an exaggeration.
Now, this was a inquiry consultant from the original J Report inquiry, one that refused to look into grooming as a specific issue. Have a listen to what she said.
I've heard people say, we know for a fact that people of certain origins are making our children unsafe. We don't have that data, and it's really important we know that.
Why don't we? Oh yeah, you've been hiding it for decades. That's why. You've not been releasing it, you've not been recording it. They have, but they're just saying that they're not. You really think they haven't? Come on, behave yourselves. They record your fingerprints, for God's sake. So the reason we haven't got this data is because they're hiding this data. And this is a inquiry consultant that's supposed to be looking into this data and finding the truth. And she's just pretty much muddying the water and trying to make out it's an everybody problem and not a specific problem to a specific area, a specific ethnicity and a specific faith. None of that. It's just probably men. It's just men in general. Let's carry on.
What we do know is that perpetrators of child sexual abuse or child sexual exploitation will come together in organised networks, and it is not defined by their ethnic origin or by their job. I mean, if we're talking about organised networks, we can see that in the Church of England. There are groups of priests who have got together to abuse children and are continuing to do so, as we know from the press over the Christmas period where that was admitted.
See what I mean about muddying the water? They're trying to spread it out so they're not looking at one specific group, although she's just done that with Christianity. Continue.
Organised networks of child abuse
Don't notice that.
are everywhere. They're in every single institution, and we have to start understanding that it's all abhorrent and it needs to stop.
So why would you not have a look at every overriding factor that went into these abhorrent crimes? Why wouldn't you figure out exactly why it happened, who did it, who's doing it the most, why they're doing it the most, etc., etc., instead of just saying, well, it's just everywhere, innit? Just part and parcel. Must be part and parcel, eh?
Politicisation and this using race as an aggravating factor.
Because it is. Because it is. It's been proven in the court minutes that it's a overriding factor. Apparently, it's not racism when it's directed at white working class children. Let's continue.
Currently is incorrect because we don't have that data, and it was one of the key recommendations of the inquiry that we do start gathering data so we can better understand patterns. And
okay, well that was...
Now, you noticed how she said that, okay. What she basically said at the beginning, we don't need to do any of these race being an aggravated factor data finding. We don't need to do any of that. But then at the very end of the same speech, she said we do need to do that. Make it make sense, love. Make your mind up. And it doesn't stop there, everyone. This was the GB News health reporter doing what I might class as even worse than she did. Have a listen to this one.
Lucy Duckworth, a consultant to the 2022 inquiry into child sexual exploitation. With us in the studio is Lucy Johnston, our science and health editor, who spoke to her. Now, this sort of it's important to hear different voices on this issue, because there's been a lot of talk about whether we should be speaking about the ethnic background of the perpetrators of these specific crimes, whether we should be looking at child sexual exploitation as a whole. What did you make of what she said there?
Well, I think that they're frustrated. That inquiry went on for 7 years, 5 years, and talked to 7,000 victims, and there were really good recommendations that were made, and nothing was done for 2 years. It's only now that the government is engaging to bring in those recommendations. And I think the point they're making is that that was looked at. There are abuse networks all over the country. There are new figures actually now. We do have up-to-date data that does suggest, you know, there is a high level of white male people operating in gangs. So to sort of cherry pick one group is at the moment not necessarily appropriate, because we don't have the data to suggest that that is where we need to look.
They refuse to factor in proportionality, don't they? They refuse it. We live in a mostly white country still. Nearly not, but still. So there is going to be higher numbers because it's a higher population. If you actually factor that in to, I don't know, per 1,000, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it, sweetheart? It's a whole different ball game. But you refuse to say that. Look at the look. She knows she's lying about this. She knows for a fact she is. You'd think that 2 women would be a little bit more attuned to the plight of the victims of these abhorrent crimes, wouldn't you? Instead of looking for excuses and looking for a way to muddy the water so that they can say, well, it's not a specific group that's doing it. You can't get angry at a specific group unless it's Christians. You can't get angry at a specific group. You have to be angry at everyone in general. The difference is, though, love, the difference, are you ready? Those crimes don't get hidden by the state, by media like yourself, by the papers, by the courts, by the police, or any of those things, do they? But one group, the ones that we want to be investigated into, do. Let's continue.
There are online grooming gangs. There are, of course, you know, problems in the church, problems in boarding schools and everywhere. So what they're saying is that we need action now. We don't need rhetoric. And this rhetoric is just enticing people. It's click hate. It's aggravating.
Did you hear that? Click hate. Finding out the truth is now click hate. And that reveals something for me. It's not about being called the word racist. It's not about that. It never has been about that. It's about the reaction that they're expecting if those numbers and statistics came out. They're terrified that the whole country would go kaboom, because it's astronomical what they've been doing for the last 40 years. And they're terrified of their neck being on the chopping block as well.
Racial problems and tensions, and it will do no good. It's more harmful. It's doing more harm than good, and it's re-traumatising victims. That's what they're saying.
Of course.
How do you re-traumatise young children that have gone through that? I'm sorry, it's not something that you forget. Trauma lives with them forever, every day. I guarantee it. And they're talking about politicising it while they're using victims as footballs.
The previous government set up the grooming gang task force. It arrested 550 people in its first year, finding specifically this issue with majority Pakistani communities. But then it sort of run out of time in the Parliament to implement any of the recommendations of the inquiry. I think I'm right in saying the Bill Minister, Chris Philp, who's now the Shadow Home Secretary, was trying to implement at least a few of the recommendations from the report, and then the election came and it all got lost in the wash-up process. It seems strange that actually it's only now that the Pakistani grooming gang issue has reached the media that this Labour government is now looking to implement the recommendations of the report in full. Do we know what the people behind the report think of that?
So the grooming gang task force, are you talking about the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse?
No, the task force was a separate institution set up by the government.
By Suella Braverman, yeah.
Right, OK, yeah. So 2 different things. And again, we still don't have enough data to know whether some groups are disproportionately represented or not. Or that doesn't mean to say that.
Are you getting sick of hearing this excuse now, everyone? Because I am. I don't know. That's pretty much what they're saying. I don't know. I know you really want to know the facts and the truth and all that, but we don't know. No idea. Just go about your daily business. Don't worry about your children. Just know that we've got it handled without actually knowing what we're handling. I'm sick to death of it, mate. I'm sick to death of these people lying to your face, peeing on your back and telling you it's raining. Are you? Don't let this go, everyone. Make sure this gets shared out, because this is obviously GB News also trying to cover up the facts, and also trying to kick the can down the road, and also refusing the victims proper justice. Stay sane, everyone. I'll see you on the next one.